The Medium's Book, Part 2, Chapter 16, Special Mediums. Special aptitudes or abilities of mediums. So before we talked about the different type of mediums, I think that was 14. Um, but these are like more rare abilities, or more paranormal abilities that people see in people. They said there's a hierarchical uh, ability, like physical abilities, is lower, sort of a knocking spirit. But then there's inspirations of spirits, of there's spirits who are, and also people who attract like spirits of poets, musicians, painters, moralists, scientists, physicians, etc. And then there's a middle order. Besides the aptitude of the spirit, there is that of the medium, who is an instrument for them, more or less suitable or flexible, in which we discover special abilities. For example, a skillful musician has in their hands several violins, which to the ordinary eye all look like good instruments. But between deciding which instrument to use, the consummate artist has the experience that there's shades of delicacy, which will select some and reject others by intuition rather than something that you can define. Um, but also, to us, who's not a musician, might pick up the violins and be like, this one's pretty, this one's heavier, but we might not have the experience to know that the strings on one can tighten to make a perfect sound of a perfect piece. The same with drawing or music, etc. There are some people without any scientific knowledge have a more aptitude to receive the scientific information, or for historical studies, or for philosophy. And this depends on the flexibility of the medium. Most of the communications have a special seal or a flavor to them. Um, if you have a good medium that who has a good ability, that doesn't mean that they all accept a good communication of all different kinds. So then we must then look at the no, the qualities of the instrument, which is the nature of the medium, as the filter of the spirit. And then the third is the secret thought, or the third person, the observer. So the sitters at the seance, or the client, that their energy or their sentiments or their vibration or their spirits also will affect the spirits being present, and also the communication, etc. And that's why we all sit to sort of put away the day or the world, to be in unison and put out positive thoughts to get into the seance mode. So we're all on the same page and we all attract spirits, and we're all working in unison, basically. If we're not serious, then mocking spirits will then take place because we are not really concerned with the truth. We are going to sum up the principal kinds of mediumship and the different cause and effects. Some are more rare or exceptional. Um, Again, talking to their good spirits. One is again called Erastus, and they're even talking to Socrates. Mediums can be divided into two classes: mediums for physical effects, for material effects or manifestations, and then mediums for intellectual effects. Those who are more especially proper to receive and transmit intelligent communications. Physical effects uh, are manifested by the result of an intelligent cause, however. Sensitive mediums, people susceptible to the presence of spirits by general, local, vague, or material impression. Most can distinguish if a spirit is good or bad by the impression. Delicate or very sensitive mediums should abstain from communications with violent spirits or those whose impression is painful because of the fatigue resulting from it. So, in a way, sensitive mediums is kind of like a physical mediumship, a physical sensation. And I'd say cruzado is also a very physical practice in that we get a lot of physical sensations. And it's not always pleasant. And it's not just like a mental perception of what the spirit went through. You actually feel it. Natural or unconscious mediums, those who produce phenomenon without any will, or ones that are atheists or even against spirit contact, they still are being used by spirits or manifest spiritual events or communication. Optional or voluntary mediums, these have the power to invoke spirits or by their own will, by the act of prayer, etc. But they still can't do things without the spirit, the good spirits in agreement to come forward, which shows the appearance of a foreign will or power that can oppose ours or the medium. Mediums for physical effects, tipping mediums whose noises and knockings are produced, very common with or without will, so unconscious or voluntary medium. Moving mediums, those that can move objects, and this is actually considered very common. Mediums for translations and suspension, so a moving medium can move something, but they might not be able to float it in midair. And also, people or yogis who can suspend or float themselves is more or less rare, or very rare in the case of someone floating. Musical mediums can produce music in the air, or even a piano playing without by a spirit, I guess. And this is very rare. Mediums for apparitions, fluidic or tangible apparitions visible to those present. So the spirit, they manifest spirits to physical perception, and they can even like put their hand on your shoulder, and you can feel the spirit do this. But you need that medium who's able to do this present for the another person or that medium to feel it. Mediums for materialization, to bring material object. It's a variety of moving medium. This is like exceptional or rare. Nocturnal mediums, physical effects only in darkness, like light, mediums that can produce light. Again, some of these manifestations are open for charlatans or fakers to make little tricks, or ventriloquism, etc., to make money, but that doesn't make the legit manifestations not legit. Pneumatographic mediums, those who obtain direct writing, is very rare. So that's like a pencil by itself, or putting paper in a drawer and opening it and seeing writing. So even though it's mechanical writing, the intelligence of the medium and the spirit always plays a part. Healing mediums, by the laying on of hands or prayer, it's not essentially by mediums or as a result of the spirit. Spirits bring energy. Spirits can come heal, assist healers. But it's actually a result of our magnetic power as well, which can help by the good spirits. And there's ways to remagnetize by our hand passes another medium or a sick person's energy body. And an imbalance in someone's energy body eventually filters down and will mess up our physical body. Excitative mediums, these mediums can boost, or energy boosters, and can boost the abilities in other people. And that's also why public misa is really important, because it boosts developing mediums' abilities. It's also a magnetic effect, and may not actually be by an intervention of a foreign spirit, which is a order of physical effects. Now they're more talking about intellectual effects of special mediums. Hearing mediums, those who hear spirits, is quite common. There are many who imagine this, however. Speaking mediums, those who speak under the influence of spirits, is also quite common. Seeing mediums, those who see spirits in a waking state. This can be quite frequent by accident, but habitual or doing it by option to see a spirit is rarer. This is why you not always believe people who say that they see spirits. Inspired mediums can be against uh, your own will, and it can be just for ordinary things or for great intellectual labor. Mediums for presentiments, people who have a vague intuition of ordinary future events. Prophetic mediums is a presentiment medium on a grander scale. By God's permission to reveal of a future or general, usually it's more of a community interest, to make known to mankind for our instruction. But there are many false prophets by ambition, and the Book of Spirits, number 624, goes into characters of true prophets. Somnambulistic mediums, those who are in a trance state assisted by spirits, trance state or possession. Ecstatic mediums in trance also receive revelations, but also can be influenced by our own imagination, or by deceiving spirits who profit by our nervous system being excited. It's very rare to be able to go into a trance state, because our own mind influences that more than an actual spirit coming to us. Because you're more channeling your own spirit, which Kardec gets into that at other points in time. Painting and drawing mediums, those who paint or draw under the influence of spirits. Um, um, and we can all draw something like a house or a stick person, etc., just to get the message across. Um, and there's qualities of the drawing besides just being art. You can shade a pencil back and forth, and it can make pictures as well, even if you aren't a good drawer, and it's a form of a writing medium. Medium musicians compose or execute or write music under the influence of spirits. Mechanical, semi mechanical, intuitive, inspired mediums is the same as for writing mediums. And even in performance and dance is a huge thing in our traditions that is good for cleansing a person or for trance or for expression. It's nonverbal communication. Uh, Varieties of writing mediums is writing or psychographic mediums who can write under the influence of spirits. Mechanical writing, the hand receives an involuntary impulse and have no consciousness of what they write, very rare. Semi-mechanical, those whose hands moves involuntarily, but you have some kind of impression of the words or phrases as you write them, the most common. Intuitive, spirit communicates by thoughts and hand is guided by the will. They have no need to write, but writes by suggestion instantly. These are very common, but also subject to error because they may not be able to distinguish what emanates from the spirits and from their own ideas. Polygraphic mediums, those who writing changes, so your writing changes to the handwriting of a spirit, or are able to reproduce the writing a spirit had in life. The first is very common to write in someone's handwriting, but to be able to reproduce the handwriting is very rare, by will, or like an exact signature. Polyglot mediums, those who can speak in other languages unknown to them, very rare. Illiterate mediums, those who write as mediums but in real life do not know how to read or write. But there's a greater material uh, or greater obstacles to overcome with this, so that spirits generally don't make use of these people. According to the development of the faculty, so your communications differ in how developed of a medium you are, obviously. Novice, not fully developed, and who lack the necessary experience. Unproductive, those who can only do insignificant things, a letter, and seem to have no meaning. And this is an unproductive medium, isn't really a medium. Um, Formed or complete mediums, completely develop, who transmit the communications easily and quickly without hesitation. It may or may not be with practice, whereas a novice, communications are slow and difficult and need to be done with practice. Laconic mediums, those who communications, although they are easy, are brief and do not develop. Um, and this is more like a latent or a sleeping an ability, which is also not as developed. Explicit mediums have a full and extent that a perfect writer could obtain. This can develop in a short time or be an experience of a serious studies in the practice of spiritism. Experience gives the medium the tact necessary to communicate, to translate and appreciate the spirits who manifest himself, to judge and discern qualities of a spirit, good or bad, and to discern frauds of deceiving spirits who shield themselves under the appearance of truth. Just because you write easily doesn't mean that you're a master of mediumship and can become the prey of lying and hypocritical spirits who think that they are developed mediums. Flexible mediums, those whose ability is most easily adapted to various types of communication, various types of methods, and can either spontaneously or by invoking prayer, spirits come to them. And they're usually sensitives. Exclusive mediums is usually they only work with one spirit or a very small group of spirits. Concerning with them are not as flexible. They're saying it's a more of a defect because spirits can become more obsessive on the person if only one spirit's around a person and won't let other spirits come in as easily. Mediums for invocation, flexible mediums can more call spirits. Um, Mediums for spontaneous dictation are often untrained, um, but can be difficult to call spirits. According to the kind and specialty of the communications now, is versifying mediums, that communications are in verse. It's very common for bad verses and very rare for good ones, kind of like poetry. Poetic mediums are often very just sentimental and aren't anything of real value and can be very vague. And this is very common. Positive mediums have a general clearness and precise communication of teachings, and circumstantial details are quite rare. Literary mediums are not vague or not extremely precise, but have a lot of wisdom. Their style is correct and elegant and eloquent. Incorrect mediums can obtain a variety of good things and talk about morals, but their style is diffuse, incorrect, repetitive, or has what they call improper terms or improper mode of operating, or may swear, etc., according to Kardec. Which he says shows an inferiority of the spirit. Historical mediums is about historical developments, philosophy, often independent of the knowledge base of a medium for unlearned person or even children above their mental caliber. Says it's rare variety of a positive medium. So that's a positive medium is more like an evident medium or evidence medium. Scientific mediums, we do not say scientists because they may be ignorant themselves, but they have communications regarding to sciences. Medical mediums, to serve as interpreters for spirits for medical prescriptions. This is not necessarily a healing medium because they just give prescriptions. They don't actually directly heal the client. They do nothing but transmit the thought of the spirits, and they themselves have no influence, quite common. Whereas the ability to heal someone is rarer. Having the ability to directly lay on hands and heal somebody is a bit rarer than the ability of a medium to um, give like a tea that somebody needs, or medical advice, or where to seek medical advice. Religious mediums talk about philosophy of religions of a specific religions that they held in life, or about religious questions with regard to their own usual beliefs or habits. Moral philosophic mediums talk about moral and higher philosophy. This is very common for spirits to talk about morality because they're more concerned with our progress as a spirit, or as a person, to work on ourself and our own personality and our relationships between humans for humans' progress. Mediums for trivial and obscene communications. Certain mediums habitually receive this and marks the character of the spirit that they're dealing with. Um, and it's I would say it's pretty common because there's a buildup of negative debt around our world, especially in the beginning as well of a mediumship of an untrained medium, because you're more open to that. And to believe it, you would the things that they say to you, you would also lack maybe common sense to believe that this could come from good spirits. And a lack of boundaries and a lack of maybe a sense of who you are that you can't necessarily discern from what's you and what's a spirit influencing you, or your own mind, your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own triggers, your own self control, etc. That doesn't mean that you aren't influenced by them, but that you can, uh, like, you have the recognition of it. Calm mediums, they are always slow and always calm, without regard to the information or the agitation of a spirit. Rapid mediums write so quickly because they have so much energy that it's often difficult for them to write or to catch up to speed with the spirit communication. But it's also very tiring because they use up too much of their fluids, their energy, of their own energy body uselessly. And that's also why spirit communication and tapping into greater power and having these practices and expanding our energy body is really important, because we don't want to be just using intent magic or just using up our own life force. There has to be a method of us remagnetizing ourselves and re-energizing ourselves and taking breaks. Convulsive mediums, and I also see this with physical possession, often in an almost feverish state of overexcitement, nervous system overexcitement, hand or their whole person trembles with energy that they cannot, or it's very difficult for them to mentally like overrule. This also depends on the nature of spirit who communicate with you and your own development. If you're born in some of these traditions and African traditions are used to dealing with being a horse, you have expanded your energy body for this bigger energy to come in, I feel too, versus someone coming in from the outside. It says that we should not overuse or but rarely use our mediumship because the too frequent use of it may affect the nervous system. According to the moral qualities of the medium now. So again, his European, his moral, his Christian, and the doctrine that they have of spiritism, um, very much is what influences our spirit communication. And that's why it's also very important. And the person that's running the Misa to register to set up sort of the energy of the seance. So there's personal responsibility. We don't just call a spirit to set up a boundary so that no negative spirits come in. And we don't always just banish. Where we, as spiritists, we process. We're like the bail bondsman of spirits, is what I like to say. We process negative spirits basically to find out what their problem is, and to help them out and to help the person out that's being plagued by them. So. But we do try to keep the bar for the ride at a certain height. Um, and that's why it's really important, and why outsiders these traditions or neo-pagans have a hard time understanding the moral doctrines of spiritism. Sometimes I think Kardec takes it a little too far. Like when people want to then class indigenous practices by this Christian European educated class of people who are studying spiritism of the Victorian age. Imperfect mediums, obsessed mediums, those who cannot rid themselves of importunate and deceiving spirits who themselves are not deceived. And at any time, is sometimes for our own tests and trials. Sometimes it's because of our own imperfections, or because just the nature of what our work is and the nature of the world, spiritual world, and our of our incarnation. And when very wise spiritist that I respect said even Jesus was tempted on the mount. And I have to agree with that, that it's not a blame game necessarily of a person who's obsessed by a bad spirit. It's like we don't blame people for the state that they're in necessarily, because it's a human state of that we're in, and we're supposed to have compassion in all this. So fascinated mediums, those who are directed by deceiving spirits and are deluded in their nature of the communications they receive. This is also why it's very important late at night not to talk too much about your dreams when you wake up, um, etc., and not to be too obsessed by the spirits because they're obsessing on us. Subjugated, those who are subjugated to a moral and material domination of bad spirits. I would have to also say that this is a degree of a worsening of an obsession. Trifling mediums, those who do not accept their facility as serious and only use it for amusement, um, like strictly as selfish, monetary, or futile things. Indifferent mediums, those who draw no moral profit or instruction, and in no way correct or modify their own habits by spirit's criticism. Presumptuous mediums, those who pretend that they alone have superior ability or deal with superior spirits. They believe that their spirits are infallible, or that as an instrument of the spirits they are infallible, and regard other spirits as inferior, other mediums as inferior, or any criticism of a spirit towards them as impossible. Haughty mediums, those who are vain of the communications they receive, they have nothing more to learn, and they do not take the lessons of themselves. They are content with the faculties they possess, or they are not content. They often go along trying to collect spirits or abilities. Susceptible mediums, they are wounded by the criticism of their uh, spirits. They're haughty mediums. They seek applause and they want to impose on other people and take the lead and get attention at seances. Let them go and strut elsewhere with ears more compliant, or withdraw into isolation. The reunions they deprive of their presence do not sustain a very great loss. Mercenary mediums, those who sell their faculty. And so Kardec did not believe in anybody profiting from their mediumship. However, in Cruzado, we do make more of the use of things like, you know, herbs, perfumes, cigars, etc. So we do take donations, or sometimes set a small fee for work, because often things are coming out of our pocket regardless. Ambitious mediums, those who, without putting a price on their faculty, yet hope to draw from some advantages. So, advantage in life, um, for their own profit. They always just use it to like get that better job, or to get fame or attention, or whatever they're using their mediumship for. It, that they shouldn't necessarily be using their mediumship for, or using it for, I guess, say 100%, or there's no imbalance, because we're supposed to be giving. Insincere mediums, those who have real abilities, but they fake the ones they don't have. Um, an insincere medium is actually a medium who's not a complete charlatan. Egotistic medium only for personal use, and don't give the messages to others that they should be giving. So like a lot of times that comes from a lack of confidence, but you should in general pass the message on, even though sometimes it's very difficult and we need to have tact. Jealous mediums, those who are jealous of other people's spirits or abilities, or see those who are mediums who are better appreciated by the public, or who are their superiors. All these bad qualities have their counterparts in good, such as the serious mediums who use their ability for good and useful purposes, who view it as profane just to use it for curiosity or for trifles. Modest mediums, those who take no merit for themselves, but will give the glory to God or their own spirits, or just say this is a natural phenomenon, or I just, anybody could do this who's a medium, they just have to devote the time, etc. Devoted mediums, those who believe we have a special medium mission to fulfill, and that could vary according to the medium. Your mission could be healing, your mission could be teaching, your mission could be any number of things, writing, for the good of others. Certain mediums, these are confident in the character of themselves, the elevated nature of the spirits who assist, and are least likely to be deceived, and they have a great sense of discernment of spirits. Mediumship is spreading day by day, and there's going to become a day where people are going to know more or less who is false, and more or less don't need to go to false mediums, because there's going to be known that there's so many great mediums out there. Spirits and mediums can be looked up as a spirit scale in like the type of person they are and the type of messages that they give out, etc. You can cultivate abilities that you maybe don't think you have or that are weaker, but to pursue all others may weaken your actual primary abilities or lose them. So we need to be honest with ourselves about what we have and don't have, but at the same time, don't discourage ourselves. And trying to be a jack of all trades, you're a master of none. And it can be seen about people spreading themselves too thin over spiritual paths too. That sometimes you have to put something away, or quit some things in order to focus on some other things. And trying to do all, you will do nothing well. Um, and with haughty presumption, the spirits will never leave this unpunished. It's not rare to see mediums unhappy with the gifts they have and out of ambition or ego try to possess exceptional faculties so that they can be noticed. But this destroys that quality of sure mediums who know what they have and are grateful for what they have and know how to use it as a tool, as a useful tool of God, basically. Um, the character of the medium may not have anything to do with the message they give. For example, a very serious medium, um, or someone who is very serious may give out joyful messages, or someone who's or someone who's normally very happy-go-lucky may have very grave or severe communications, which is proof again of a foreign influence. And they all talk about this more under moral influence of the medium.